This video has been brought to you today by Hims. Please stay tuned until the end of this video near the outtakes to find out a little bit more.
There will be blood tonight.
On the PS4.
Bugger! Maybe I'm not cut out to be an outlaw after all. What? Red Dead Redemption, as far as I'm concerned, was a complete classic from the previous generation of consoles, and even though I do enjoy GTA to an extent, and LA Noire Remastered was a fun enough time, once Rockstar announced they were working on Red Dead Redemption 2, that was the thing I was really desperate for. And after all these years waiting, I'm immensely shocked to say that I found Red Dead Redemption 2 to be completely, utterly, unintelligibly goddamn brilliant. And I say this as someone who was massively skeptical to the fact this was going to be a prequel to the original. I mean, yeah, obviously, you can't follow what transpires at the end of the original game without upsetting a lot of people, because the entire point of that game was about the collapse of the Wild West and the rise of civilization. You were John Marston, a former outlaw blackmailed by the government to hunt down the remaining members of his gang from the past in order to save his captured family from a government desperate to take over every last ounce of violent freedom the outlaws feel they're entitled to. And of course, how far John himself was willing to go to, you know, redeem himself from his past discretions. Ultimately, it's far from a happy ending for any character you grow attached to in the story, but following that on with another game about a gang of outlaws wouldn't fit in whatsoever with the timeline after what happens to the Marston family. And the game ends in 1914 anyway, so the possibilities of what you could actually do as an outlaw would be slim to say the least. And that's what I wasn't sure about initially. Once I heard about the characters featured in the new game, many of the story beats in Red Dead Redemption 2 were totally ruined for me by the mere existence of a following story, meaning that you know more or less exactly what becomes of most of the main players by the end, but this doesn't mean that a fantastic and effective story can't be told just because it's a prequel, and I'm immensely glad to say that Red Dead 2 exceeds in almost every way with telling a great story and provides so much brilliantly detailed flavor text and background to all the characters I loved and hated in Red Dead 1 that I struggled to even care about what I already knew. Aside from that, as a game, Red Dead 2 is an incredible Wild West outlaw simulator, and that's the best way I can describe it, because as a third-person action-adventure game, I didn't think it was the best in its field for controls or smoothness of your movement whatsoever, but as a simulator mixed in with a bloody and intense action-adventure game, with the amount of paths you're able to take, the amount you're able to do, the level of depth to the atmosphere, and how well it succeeds in making you feel like a struggling and oppressed outlaw, that's what ultimately pulled me in. I mean, just look at how realistic this game is at Five Finger Fillet. Oh my god! So today, I'm going to review it for you all, and I suppose it goes without saying there are going to be some gameplay spoilers in today's video, but I'm going to keep certain fates of certain characters completely out of this video. I'm not going to ruin any of the character quest lines or anything like that and what happens to specific characters. I'm just going to be talking about the game as a whole and not ruin the major plot events. But you know, still, just to be safe in case you want to go in completely blind.
Spoilers, alright, okay, nice.
And hey, if you didn't enjoy this game, that's completely fine as well. I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. This channel is all about having a good time and me just sharing my personal experiences. I mean, I wouldn't take what I say that seriously anyway. Did you see what happened the last time I was asked to make a sign for a frat party? In Red Dead 2, you take control of Arthur Morgan. He's a fiercely loyal, dryly humorous, and vital asset to the same gang you end up hunting down as John Marston in the original Red Dead, led by Dutch van der Linde before he went crazy and started recruiting Native Americans to harass the townsfolk for giggles. The story sees you going through a chunk of Arthur's life from the moment the gang starts to fall to pieces after a failed robbery in a town known as Blackwater, with every effort of the gang trying to stick together and pull off more illegal stunts to fund their escape, bringing in worse returns at the cost of more and more blood, eventually until the gang disbands because there is literally no point in fighting the rapid speed of the changing social system. A bit of the mystery for me was ruined indeed by the original Red Dead's existence, however that doesn't mean I didn't absolutely bloody love the story here, and honestly couldn't see where much of it was going. I found it extremely engrossing with mixtures of hilarious, heartwarming, gritty, awful and totally tragic, all in a stewing pot of whiskey and urine that I like to call pisky. And as someone who adored the character of John Marston in Red Dead 1 and didn't think Arthur would come even remotely close to his level of interesting and likability, he bloody well did as well.
I'm counting. 1, 2, 3. Milliken, is it?
Yes, sir.
Will you count for me? I got talking to do.
Yes, sir. Of course, sir.
From 1 or 4? Oh, very funny. No, we must be at 11 by now.
I loved his dry wit, his aged, non-shit-taking attitude, his expressive dialogue, and his gentle yet brutal nature. And despite him being an outlaw, you really feel for the dude, you know? No matter what atrocities he would be a part of in the story, I always felt his humanity and morality struggling against his loyalty to what he considers to be his family within the gang, no matter how badly he thinks the war they're fighting against the system is going. And since he has nothing else he can possibly do to rectify his guilt this far ahead into his days as an outlaw, all he can do is try and get the best possible outcome for those closest to him at the expense of other people in the most justifiable way possible. Ideally without getting anyone innocent hurt, but as we know, this is a Wild West story and they are never ever happy-go-lucky. The way the game unravels the plot too is extremely natural and great stuff. You spend a lot of time during quests back and forthing with each member of your gang and getting really attached to them, making any eventual betrayals, deaths, kidnaps or more even more gut-punching. And aside from a couple of bad apples, looking at you, Micah, it is really damn ironic how most of the morally grounded and likeable characters in the whole game are the outlaws themselves, despite how far civilization has moved on. I mean, look at Agent Milton from the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Everything he does in this game is completely understandable and justifiable, but my god, he's such a bloody bastard. And it's his partner in this game that becomes the next bastard in the original Red Dead, so that's how much of a bastard he is. His bastard runs off onto other people until they become bastards. All the characters in the gang as well, no matter how small a role they play in the plot, I ended up remembering, which doesn't ever really happen for me in modern games. They all have completely different personalities, distinct senses of humour, and the game as a whole does a great job with showing us what many of the characters in Red Dead 1 were like in their heyday and how the American landscape changed them as the Wild West era came to a close and puts a different spin on everything in Red Dead 1. Seeing Dutch, for instance, one of the nastiest assholes in Red Dead 1, go from a genuinely lovable and charismatic leader to a bitter and hate-filled psychopath is extremely depressing. And Arthur's entire story arc is even more depressing despite the fact he's a new character to the franchise, especially with how he helped out many of the gang members get out as things turned to shit, and the amount of guidance he gives John Marston ready for his eventual redemption plot in the original game, not just for his actions as an outlaw but the treatment of his family too. And because of that, I was a little shocked to see some of the scenes with John, to be honest, not because he's horrible or anything, but because he's a totally different person at the start of Red Dead 2 compared to the start of Red Dead 1. The themes of the changing times are hammered in greatly from gameplay too. I mean, you can keep your bounty as low as you possibly can, but story missions, like it or not, force you into situations as part of a rebelling outlaw gang too stubborn and too far gone to bow down to the changing political and social climate, leading you to get bounties regardless, meaning the game is made just that little bit harder for you out of your own control just because of who you are. You can't just keep paying off your bounties and remain clean. There's this constant struggle between the law and the lawless that gets more and more extreme as the game continues, eventually culminating in scenes where instead of giddy-up, fast-paced, intense battle music, things get gradually much more somber and slow as more and more innocent people die at the plight of Dutch slowly losing his mind, and you truly feel the weight of that. So much so that the game ended up depressing me with its incredibly done tonal shift. It's not like one sad moment after another sad moment, it's more of a collection of moments that pile on top of each other and then just all fall to pieces. All in all, it paints an overwhelmingly bleak picture of what the Wild West was more like instead of this delusional, romanticized version that Dutch and many of his followers still believe that it is. Before anything else gameplay-wise, I really must praise the agonizing level of detail in this game, and that's another thing that makes me feel comfortable in saying it's got a lot of simulator-esque aspects to it. The attention to detail here is absolutely exquisite, and the only way I can illustrate that is by listing some of the things that I personally noticed. The way Arthur's body reacted to different levels of terrain felt eerily real with the insane amounts of animation on his body, and I loved the way he tried to at least walk down a steep hill before eventually falling over. And when and where your horse trips up in the middle of a gallop feels extremely well done too. Realistic, weighty, and for me at least always happened at extremely awkward bits of rock or tree stumps the horse couldn't possibly jump over in time. Not only does your hair grow throughout the game that you can trim and style depending on the length, yes, you need to be patient and play for hours to get your own custom hairstyle in this game. Fabulousness doesn't come for free, darling! But you can also get more and more dirty throughout the game and choose to wash it off in a local bathroom, along with other services. Every time you eat or drink something from your inventory, you discard the rubbish on the floor, and the litter will stay there physically in the game world for you to shoot or kick around. There was one time I saved a man from a stagecoach robbery, and as thanks he offered me whatever was in the safe box at the back of the coach. However, I didn't have the correct tool to open it at that point of the game, a lock breaker, so I thought, hey, why not use my gun? And wouldn't you know, it bloody worked. If you keep dead bodies or dead wildlife on you for long enough, they will eventually decompose and provide automatic bait for vultures and other random wildlife wanting to nibble their bits off. If you stay out in the cold for too long without the correct clothes, you eventually get sick, meaning that items like cigarettes that would usually up your stamina or slow-mo deadeye meter will actually damage you and cause you to cough and give away your position. Birds can randomly attack fish from busier ends of rivers to give you an easy kill for selling or cooking. You can not only have your hat shot off during gunfights or smacked off of your head, but you can also pick up any other random person's hat on the floor. Or gun, now that I think about it, if you run out of ammo, that is. If your horse has a bit of a fright, it shats! And Arthur isn't having any of it. And speaking of, after bonding with your horse for a long time, it will begin to follow you without you even calling it. Also, if you're having a conversation with someone else on horseback, you have regular loud-ish talking volumes if you ride alongside them.
Did you two ever think about getting out of the life?
We did briefly. You don't remember?
But if you drop back too far in the middle of a sentence, not only will you get the typical Uncharted 4 and God of War PS4 trick of having the characters ask you where they last were before being separated, but if you're just close enough to them before that happens, you'll continue speaking, but shouting even louder to compensate for how far away you are.
Why are you getting involved in this, Dutch?
You know me. We shoot fellers as need shooting. We save fellers as need saving. Feed them as need feeding.
Not this again. It's been quite a while since we helped anyone but ourselves.
This only happened to me twice in the whole game, but does this mean that every single potential line for horse riding chatter was recorded twice just in case you were too far away? If so, Christ almighty, that's impressive. And when your camp is celebrating a good job well done or the return of a missing partner, you can choose to either join in with the singing, dancing and drinking, or just go to bed and ignore it until the morning.
And that particularly impressed me because that's exactly what I do in real life.
And as for the visuals and music, shit the bed, it's incredible in both departments. Musically, it has one of the most varied and enrapturing scores I've heard in a long time, with every spectrum of emotional and totally badass being covered with the same instruments for radically different scenarios. And hey, those tracks with actual singing in them, whether it's for a happy montage or a reflective, depressing trot back home after a devastating event, they were all memorable, brilliantly performed, and actually contributed to the parts of the game they were used.
Unlike the most awkward scene in gaming history, Skullface. What kind of a name is that anyway? Everyone has a skull. That is what your face is. Oh, you'll show me your demon, will you? Great, well then why don't you say something about your demon for 5 pissing minutes? And the visuals, I mean, my god, I knew this was going to be fantastic stuff from the very beginning of the game when you see the hoof prints left from the horses walking in the snow. That is perfect. That is Italian kiss. Some of the best quality horse snow footprint graphics I've ever seen in my life. 61% on Metacritic. 5-star! Pre-order at Target now and get exclusive horse nappies!
And it isn't just immeasurably detailed, brimming with life, and way more gorgeous even in desolate wastelands compared to the first game, which still looked great for the time, but it can be downright vile and nasty on many occasions to accentuate the position you're in and how horrible the life of an outlaw could be. With some of the details found around the world as well, it doesn't hold back on what some humans were capable of at that time, and can even be more horrific simply in implications without anything actually happening around you. I tell you, it can be more explicit than the lyrics of Nicki Manage, and my god, some of the death animations you'll see will often see body parts fly off, holes appearing from the entrance and exit wounds, or even have a crimson flower of blood pour out as their heads explode.
And sometimes, your horse turns into Michael Jackson.
Oh look, there's also a typo there.
Good to see those 100-hour work weeks paid off, eh?
Disclaimer, cheer up everybody, this was just a joke. I deeply respect every single hour of sweat and tears that went into making this game from every person involved. However, I do think it's a completely unrealistic and dangerous work ethic that the head of a company should never boast about, and I really, really hope that the team got rightfully compensated for this unhealthy lifestyle, because if they didn't, then Rockstar can go and get f***ed.
To be serious for just a second though, yes, the game does have glitches, but as far as my playtime is concerned, I didn't find absolutely anything aside from like 3 bugs in total throughout the whole massive story mode, and for a game this huge with so many variables working together, that's mighty impressive. There was this part where a body started floating away from me. And also this part where I went to the barbershop for a haircut, and as soon as the next story mission began, my hair grew back even longer from where it was originally. What the hell was that about? But aside from that and the horse glitch, there really wasn't that much else going on wrong. And there are so many different areas of America that you explore through too. There's highly advanced cities, dusty desert towns, wastelands, swamplands, mountains, cliffside forests with waterfalls, and for a brief moment you even go on holiday to Guam. But it all does go to shit within a few minutes, so I do hope that holiday was at all protected. I did catch another bug here too when I was trying to cover behind a rock, but instead of doing that, Arthur decided it was a perfect idea to ignore that rock, leap like a lord over the bloody thing and stick to the wall nearby, which then got me shot in the head. Thanks, game. Also, there was this one mission where I was escaping enemies down waterfall rapids, and my god, for how fabulous the rest of the game looks, what the Jesus Christing hell is going on with this water? Look how pixely it is. It looks terrible.
Come on guys, what is this? Tomb Raider 2? This hot dog sausage with googly eyes looks more like a snake than that looks like water.
There's a snake in my boot!
The gameplay is great stuff too. Nothing mind-blowing or that different if you played a Rockstar game before, but in terms of immersion and, like I said, the simulation aspect to everything, it's one of the most enveloping I've ever played. Shooting guns feels really damn good, dashing around the countryside, or just simply taking one step at a time to take in the gorgeous views contributes so much to the atmosphere, the story with character conversations, and also allows many different NPC events to happen around you that always feel totally natural within the environment. The weapon wheel and inventory is quick and easy to use, and I quite enjoyed the core system for health, stamina, and slow-mo Deadeye making a return from Red Dead 1. You have a certain amount of health, stamina, and slow-mo time for sure, but it regenerates over time unless you consume medicine to get it back immediately. But in order to get it to regenerate, you need to keep your cores up by eating and drinking appropriate things. Be careful though, because eating too much or too little, despite how low or high your cores are, can cause you to be under or overweight, which causes its own problems that affect stamina usage, core regeneration, and defense. These are just the main ingredients to the game though, because there is so much to do in Red Dead Redemption 2. So much in fact that even if some are simple mechanically, they contribute so well to the plot, simulation aspect, or atmosphere, I found them all entertaining no matter what. And I swear to the Lord that at least 3 hours of my playtime was just patting this dog over and over again, because look at his tail go! Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
Not you, Stan. No, you're not good. You're not in Red Dead Redemption 2. How good could you possibly be?
There's hunting in the game where you can just kill things while on your way to the next destination for food, or slowly stealth around and track their prints to grab rarer animals for more money at butchers, and even legendary animal hunting for some of the best prices and equipment. Be forewarned though, they can not only fight back and give you some incredibly tense moments, but also need to be taken down as gently as possible for the best possible carcass or fur quality, so you're talking bows and arrows instead of shotguns, which is a lot harder to do, but the rewards are worth it. And if you aren't that quick with doing whatever you want to with the body, it will eventually rot and be of no use to anybody. And you can skin them, I suppose, but that's just... Ew. You can get attacked by rival gangs when out and about, some of whom don't even have time to recognize you if you run by fast enough, and if you end up getting killed by them and having legendary animal pelts or something else stolen from you, that makes you feel so low I can't even possibly describe it. There are other strangers in the wilderness to run into though, and you can try talking to them, but sometimes you'll just upset them, so you can either rob them, carry on, or kill them, whatever you want to do. Some strangers are being attacked by animals, and if you don't come and save them quick enough, they'll actually refuse the medicine you give them, leaving you no choice but to put them out of their misery. You'll be going along, we'll find random people in random situations all the time. Some will be friendly and give you a quick hello, or maybe even clue you in on a secret for something. Others are just other people in your position that don't want you getting involved in their shit. Some call you over because they found a load of harvesting materials to share with you, or you can rob them and kill them and take all of their stuff, but I felt too bad doing that, so I didn't. I'm a very nice outlaw. Some people are even being taken in by the law and claimed to be wrongfully arrested, but it's up to you whether to question them, question the guards, or break them out. And everything you do has consequences to your honor meter, affecting tons of things from prices at shops to body looting item drop rates and even types of gear to unlock. But a lot of the time you can get away with naughty stuff, just make sure that you firstly equip the bandana to hide your identity, very important, and don't forget to unequip it either, good lord that upsets people, and hide the bodies that you're done with. After you've done all of this stuff, you'll be fine.
Don't feel too bad for these people though, because you know what they say, it's just totally big enough for the both of us.
Also, you see that train there? You bet your hairy ass you can go for it, ride alongside it, jump on board, and have a go at robbing it before it pulls into the next station. And whatever you do, make sure no guards see you, because when that happens, you most likely aren't getting away with anything and will just keep piling up the bounty the more people die as the train is stopped by the police. And if the passengers don't want to give you their money, either beat them up or draw your weapon out at them to persuade them. Yeah. I'm a very influential young man. There's also maintenance mechanics too, not just with things like buying additional parts to your guns and customizing their look and upgrading their attributes, but with things like making sure the guns you use more frequently are kept spick and span with gun oil so that their performance is always up to scratch. And you need to look after your own horse by feeding it to keep its separate stamina and health cores up, calming it down when it's stressed, brushing it when it's dirty, and even just patting it whenever you hitch it outside a building, which sounds tedious, but this horse I ended up falling in love with. Oh god, no, not in that way, you disgusting twat. I mean more in a companion sort of way. This horse, if you look after it and unlock all the moves for it through bonding, will quickly become your best friend. And I named my horse Philippe, because that is a good name for a horse. He or she stores all of your equipment on the saddle, looks after your weapons, saves your ass more than once, carries people and animals alike, follows you like a loyal best friend. You really get connected to it. And when I was attacked by that bastard O'Driscoll gang at the canyons that one time, they ended up nearly slaughtering my beloved horse that I spent hours and hours bonding with, and I just so happened to have sold my only horse revival medicine right before leaving town. So do you know what I did? I panicked and ran all the way back to the town that I was already wanted in, paid back my bounty at the post office, grabbed the tonics that I needed, and got back as quick as I could, all the while my horse was dying and nearly blinking out of existence. This whole process took a long time and tons of stamina medication because I was that connected to... But that's how desperate the whole situation made me. I haven't been this stressed in a non-horror game in my whole life, and I'll never forget the experience because of that. And hey, want to talk about stress? How about this mission in particular when you're helping out the Native Americans? One of my teammates kept dying and failing the mission in the exact same place over and over again for no real reason at all, and I had to redo minutes worth of gunfights about 6 times before I could carry on. I don't know what happened here, but screw this entire bit. I'm going off topic though, there's more stuff to do. You can try and defuse fights from people in the streets to avoid getting bounties for unarmed assault. You can buy things legally or hold cashiers up at gunpoint, and when making particular house robberies, you can even keep one person in the area alive to threaten the secrets of their house out of them and where they keep treasures. Or if you don't trust them running off to tell the police, you can just kill them. You don't just jump onto trains for robberies, but other vehicles and coaches too to contribute funds to your camp in order to upgrade it, which isn't cheap, but always gives you a safe backup for ammo and items in case you die and get robbed in the open world from your wallet.
And I know this is going to sound really weird and really obvious, but even though being an outlaw in this game is tremendous fun, the game doesn't half make you feel bad about it.
Those debt collecting missions for Strauss make you go through some pretty uncomfortable lengths to get the money owed to the gang back, which never made me feel good. And there was this one homestead I accidentally ended up robbing while I was just looking around the area. I know, accidentally robbed, hear me out, okay? I heard a nasty argument going on indoors from the outside, so I thought I'd make my way in to see what was going on. But I forgot to take my bandana off, so I barged into the house and got the father shooting at me. So out of instinct, I shot him right back and realised I just made this poor guy an orphan. But like, I was already here, so I figured, why not? Let's threaten the son so he could tell me if any treasure is around, and luckily there was. So it wasn't all for nothing at least, but god damn it, I felt so awful after this, I seriously needed to take a walk with the dog to cool off.
You know what? I don't need this guilt. Know what I'm gonna do instead? I'm gonna shoot this guy in the head after I nearly died doing a favour for him and it turned out he was just a disgusting slave trader. Oh, and he's on fire now.
There's the same treasure hunting from the first game with drawn images and clues you need to cross-reference with the map and world around you, and with side quests and story missions alike, you're left a lot of the time to decide what the best course of action is or whether or not to do it in the first place, which doesn't only affect the current quest, but the whole story overall, with some long-term effects being the hiring of new characters to your gang or killing them, and even the way the ending plays out. There's this new cinematic camera mode as well that gives you very pretty shots and auto-drives your horse when you need it to. And yeah, it isn't the most useful game mechanic ever implemented ever, but I do like how it's there if you want to use it. It once again really contributes to the atmosphere, and the first person mode was actually kind of a shock to me that I accidentally discovered, and despite me not using that much at all, I thought was a great alternative to third person if you prefer it. There's different animations, it plays very differently, and more importantly, it changes how you move around the game, since I must admit, the walking and running speeds in third person were a little bit off for me. Not terrible, and it didn't bother me at any point, but it wasn't the best. Your walking speed is really damn slow a lot of the time, and even though sprinting has its uses, your jogging speed can often be too damn fast and it gets you into trouble with bumping into people and such. There's no decent fast walk or middle ground speed to jogging that I found really strange. First person mode fixes that entirely, but like I said, I rarely used it. It was just really cool to see it implemented into the game. Speaking of bumping into people though, you don't even need to aim your gun to get people riled up, and remember to holster your guns unless you plan to use them. Just having them out makes some people on edge. And you could be reported for doing things even like self-defense, because after all, you are the one that looks like the outlaw, so what else would people think is going on? All of this not only adds once again to the immersion, but equally ties into the themes of the end of the Wild West and how people's sensibilities are shifting and tolerance is dropping for people like you. And though that's ultimately a good thing, it does mean all the odds are against you and you feel this push from the world around you to just give up and move on. But fighting through is the point of the game. You've got the people you love to look after, so you don't have any other choice. And you can do this! Oh, and how about this? Yeah, you can rob shops at gunpoint whenever you'd like, but then sometimes you can discover secret shady back alley dealings in the same buildings and then try to use that to blackmail the cashier into letting you into the back room to clear out the scum and steal whatever they were hiding. And yeah, the bounty you get for doing all of this may be insane if you mess it up and it all ends really badly, but the rewards are often very much worth it. And the amazing thing is that most of what you do in the game is purely satisfying just on its own. There's no skill trees, no doing things for the sake of XP. New strangers and missions don't flash up with, look, there's a new objective, with a huge garish marker superimposed on the game world. You play the game at your own pace and everything can benefit benefit or cost you depending on how you play. Your health, stamina, and Deadeye levels upgrade naturally as you play, with more rewards based on how much you experiment. Health, for instance, is upgraded by using creative combat methods like explosives or getting right up in the enemy's face with a knife, or even going fishing, weirdly enough. The more you sprint, the more your stamina will go up, and with Deadeye in particular, I found that really clever because as long as you have the tonics to refill it constantly, it can be a bit of a game breaker with how useful it is. But in order to make it last longer, which is massively helpful in bigger gunfights in the later half of the story, you need to get better at headshots and general shooting without touching it to slowly build it up. Essentially, the less you rely on the Deadeye, the better version you'll get of it in the future when you really need it, and I found that really smart. And by doing in-game challenges such as hunting particular animals, using particular weapons, or picking particular plants, etc., you also unlock the choice to buy new equipment upgrades for your clothes to increase ammo capacity and let your guns last longer before cleaning. And this all means that you can get a really bloody good setup to Arthur in the earliest moments of the story as long as you're smart enough to get funds and just explore around. Upgrading your camp not only lets you access a safe haven for ammo and provisions, but even extends to the ability to fast travel from the camp and even call your horse back to the stables no matter how far away it is from you. And seeing your camp grow and the people you care about actually grateful for your help as you jump around the country without a single place to call home really gave me a warm, tingly feeling inside. Which then has its downsides, because when members of your gang then get attacked by other gangs once you're spotted or other shenanigans happen, you don't only feel the gameplay implications but the impact of the character being attacked and the whole campsite being affected by what's going on. The vibe of the camp changes slowly throughout the game beautifully. And once you do that Saint-Denis bank robbery mission that goes horribly wrong at the midway point of the game, only to lose a massive chunk of your team you spent the whole game doing missions with and getting to know and love, which then ripples off into you losing the camp that you spent God knows how long investing into and briefly losing your horse all at the same time, you really feel that sting. And that's when one of those vocal track songs decides to play once you come back from your escape from that robbery after you accidentally end up in Guam since the escape ship you were on capsized. See, this kind of thing actually makes me feel an impact of losing what I've built in a story, and with how the story unfolds, things get even more tender once you rebuild the broken remnants of your camp, but slowly start losing the abilities to grab ammo, medicine and provisions from your camp as easily as you could before once everyone starts leaving to save their own lives and nobody trusts each other anymore. This means that instead of investing into the camp to fall back on supply topping up, you then find yourself doing more unsavory things out in the world just to get more money just to survive and keep your horse healthy, but you don't feel good about it, and neither does Arthur.
Is everybody ready for me to go negative though? Because I'm going to go negative. For as great as I found Red Dead Redemption 2 to be, I must admit, it has one of the most stale, boring, and perplexing beginnings to a game I think I've ever played.
This game may have completely sucked me into the world and outlaw lifestyle for dozens of hours, but hot damn does it take a long time to actually get there. At first I was a little bummed out that we didn't start the game off with the job in Blackwater that went horribly wrong and that kicks off the events of the game, which was apparently so bad that nobody would shut up about it, but once I tried to get my head around the controls, I totally understood why the start was so slow. Now here's the thing, I play games with controllers 24/7, I never use keyboards even on my PC, not because they're bad, but because I'm a controller man, I always will be. But saying that, and as someone who only recently finished Shadow of the Tomb Raider and played a fair amount of Assassin's Creed Odyssey with zero control issues, why was the aiming so ridiculously sluggish to use at the very start of the game here? Rockstar, I'm eternally grateful for the huge amount of settings and things to tweak for a console game, but even after getting my ideal settings after a good hour of fiddling, it still didn't feel as great as it could be until I got used to it at least 3 hours in. I turned free aim mode on, aim assist off, left the acceleration on default, turned down the sensitivity a tad, and removed the dead zone from the analog sticks entirely, and that made it fine, but that was all it ever was to me, fine. And once I got used to it, I loved the gunplay. I was able to do things like shooting people in particular places in order to trip up other horses around them, and that felt great. Plus I became a speed freak with the Deadeye free shooting once it unlocked, but I couldn't jump into it, and it felt really sludgy compared to other contemporary games. Maybe it's the 30 FPS or something, I don't know, but in my opinion it could have been much smoother. Uncharted 4 did this absolutely fine, so I don't get what happened here. Also, the context-sensitive actions seemed extremely all over the place for me too, and again, once I got used to it, I was absolutely fine with it and was able to rely on muscle memory, but to start off with, talk about a confusing mess. Picking up things off the floor and opening chests and drawers to then pick up things inside the chest or drawers changed how you press and hold or tap the triangle or square button all the damn time, and opening sub-menus like your satchel required holding another button, while getting to the map required holding another button, but only if you hadn't already paused the game by tapping the same button, or while making sure there isn't any other prompt on screen to look up the descriptions of things by holding that same button. There was one moment that I was in a train gunfight and a friend got caught, but instead of me just aiming at the enemy when I swear I had my gun already equipped, I instead just stared at the enemy, and then what usually is the firing button became the equip weapon button. And this, funnily enough, happened again in a late game mission for me too. I kicked a door down, tried to save a lady, but I just looked at the lady instead of aiming at the guy. I tell you, this entire learning curve slows the intro down even more than what it already is, with the whole slow and painful trudge through the snow and all the story missions that deliberately lock out mechanics and abilities. For instance, showing you how to hunt while on the move, but then not allowing you to equip any weapon or hunt any animal in a mission following right after it. I mean, damn, it's brilliant learning about the characters and getting wrapped up in the world, but it's at the expense of teaching me fun mechanics and then taking them away from me until a certain point in the story where it then decides to open up. And yes, in comparison to the rest of the brilliant stuff the game does and how many hours I loved it, this was a tiny percentage of my entire playtime, and it gets a lot better after the first few hours, but that's just it. It very nearly drove me away with how silly some of this stuff was. The game is an 18, I'm an adult, I can live with my own mistakes, so why can't the intro at least let me experiment a little bit so I can get used to the controls in my own comfort? I am in an outlaw gang after all.
And as every outlaw does say, "Is this town ain't big enough for the both of us?"
Once you reach your first campsite after winter passes, that is when things start going from convoluted and restrictive to very slowly brilliant. You start getting quests that don't just move the story along, but also unlock more weapons and items to play with for use whenever you want from that part of the game onwards, and many of the quests are deliriously entertaining in terms of what happens in them. There's a brilliant moment when you're tasked to take out your mate Lenny to the saloon and get him wasted so he can cope with all that's been going on, but then you end up getting so wasted that you don't just end up wandering around looking for him screaming like an ogre. But then you get so drunk that you start to think everybody around you is Lenny, leaving you to just randomly annoy people until you find out where he is. There's a quest where you have to save one of your gang members, a priest who is constantly wasted, from losing all of his money at a game of cards, starting fistfights with people, and eventually climbing up to some train tracks on a bridge over a canyon. There's a quest where you need to pretend to be a brain-dead farming idiot who killed his own mother in order for you to waste a load of stolen bourbon at a saloon and then end up getting caught from the people that you stole from. And now that I think about it, many of the funny missions usually involve some kind of alcohol. There's a quest where you book yourself a hot air balloon with this adorably hapless pilot and then convince him as a customer to take you to a prison island so that you can spy on a captured John Marston, followed by you getting caught again and then having a gunfight during the balloon ride. Look at how ridiculous this is. You even get a quest where your entire gang is walking in a badass line formation ready to shoot up a house for everything they've put your friends through. Look at this. If you weren't sure about how serious we were about killing people, this proves it. I know it's cliche for Wild West, but it's just so cool.
And you had better be ready to shoot down every single person in that mission in particular, because when you're in a gang of outlaws, you know what they say. Is this town ain't big enough for the both of us?
A few story missions restrict access to certain weapons and things, which is a little lame, but I get it, because it's mostly due to the fact it's a story mission, and you need to canonically follow the orders from your gang. But there is one mission here where, no joke, you're stuck on a stagecoach for minutes and minutes while you can't do anything other than sit there and move the camera and wait, and good Christ almighty, it's so slow, you can't even jump off the thing. Who thought this was a good idea? And something else I wasn't fond of, what was going on with the weapon switching here? I have absolutely no problem with the idea of storing guns on your horse and equipping them from the horse when you need them, along with only carrying a few guns on your person at once. Again, it was immersive, it sucked me into the world, but I swear that multiple times I'd equip certain weapons only to have them swap around and unequip at complete random. And I don't mean like with stuff like after you die, I mean generally throughout the game. After leaving my horse after a quick ride, after gunfights, I couldn't figure it out. I wasn't sure if this was because I was getting weapons shot off of my back in the middle of fights, or because I was automatically storing guns on the back of my horse while I was riding him so I wouldn't drop them.
I don't know, but I mean, I don't want you guys to think this is like a broken mechanic or something. It only happened on the occasion, but when it did happen, it was really bloody annoying. I mean, can you guys figure any of this out? Are you experiencing this on Xbox, or are you having the same issues on PS4? Please tell me, because I can't work this shit out.
This, though, is a small problem in the grand scheme of things, because Red Dead 2 is full of moments that don't even contribute to gameplay or mechanics, but just exist to heighten the experience tenfold and truly suck you in, unlike most other open world games. There was this one part I was cooking at a camp, and a gathering formed around me once Javier sat down next to me and improvised on his guitar. If a gang member starts talking to you at the camp, you can choose to listen, or tell them to shut up if you're in the middle of something.
So far, it seems okay, I guess.
I can't talk right now, sorry. We'll find them.
One time I was looking around and heard some gunshots, so I ran off to see what the issue was, and it just turned out to be a man practicing his aim with some cans. But instead of getting to talk to him and join in possibly, I accidentally knocked all of the cans over, which pissed him off and caused him to leave. And many other things happened during my playtime that unfortunately I wasn't able to record. There was one time a man couldn't calm his horse down, and by the time I ran over to help him, he was kicked in the back of the head and died. There was a prospector that didn't like me standing behind him thinking I was looking at his gold, and after a few warnings, even though I never touched him, he started trying to beat me up. I even found a guy who betted me money that he was a better shot than me with killing flying birds, and when I figured out I wasn't allowed to use the Deadeye during this bet and didn't hit a single bird, I felt kind of cheated out, so when he asked for his money, I didn't give it to him and I shot him in the head instead.
And how can I not talk about this game without mentioning the ending portion? Don't worry guys, I'm not spoiling how you get to the ending portion or how it ties into everything or what happens in the ending portion, but rest assured, my god, if there was an award for longest epilogue to anything ever, I think that the ending of Red Dead Redemption 2 at 4 hours with John Marston definitely takes the cake.
Okay, to be fair, I'm in two minds about this. Firstly, I wasn't sure about this ending because it does go on for a long ass time and is such a massive departure from the rest of the flow of the gameplay that you just finished, it may end up fatiguing you, especially after jumping from one character to another. And it only means anything to you if you played and enjoyed Red Dead 1, since it directly links in with that game. In the context of this game as a whole, aside from the very end of the end, it does kind of just exist. It sticks out a bit. On the other hand though, I love this ending because the closure of Arthur's story is just as bleak as the rest of the game and doesn't really pay off anything. A fitting end in terms of the context of the story, but it doesn't feel like it ends the game that much. So having the last moments of the game follow John as he tries to make a fresh start with his family years after the events of part 1 and figuring out how insane Dutch has gone, yeah, that is satisfying. And if you've played Red Dead 1 and enjoyed it, this ending segment will mean everything to you in that sense. It's almost like bonus prequel DLC on top of an already massive and great game beforehand. Plus it's a really unique way to loop around the themes of the story, as you get attacked by people that are exactly what you were earlier on in the game, but at the same time, you are still on the run for being a wanted man, and no matter what you do, how well you treat your family, how mundane your normal life becomes, how many years it's been, even how much debt you end up into the bank for legally buying your own land to start afresh, these people will never escape the torment of their past. Redemption is Red Dead. It's pointless. And considering what happens to John in Red Dead 1, this cements the point of the bigger story at work between both games and makes it all the more soul-crushing when reflecting on all that's transpired. So let's conclude things then, why don't we? Red Dead Redemption 2 is far from free of problems, and it does have a much stronger middle section than the first few and last few hours, but I honestly can't deny that I fell in love with this game so much that I am glad I didn't find any menu in the game that showed me how many hours total I spent on it, because if I saw that, I think I'd have to put myself on double medication. I was obsessed for a solid week with this game inside and out, couldn't stop playing it, and especially if you love the original Red Dead like I did, you owe it to yourself to pick this one up. I don't think as a whole it's better than the original, purely because the themes of, you know, redemption, which is in the title, is much stronger in the original game and is a more focused story, but the second succeeds in so many other ways that I can't say I enjoyed it less either.
Well, that depends on what you're looking for. If you want a solid and grounded third-person action-adventure game with the Wild West as a setting, but with a better pace to its story and much more personal stakes, then you go with the original game. But if you want one of the most atmospheric, beautiful, and deeply detailed video game worlds, with the same fantastic action and intense scenes, but with a group of great characters, you go with the second one. Whatever floats your boat, I suppose. Just get ready for a lot of this.
Hello there everybody, and yes, just wait a second, hold your horses, even, because of Red Dead Cowboy. The outtakes will be on in just a second, everybody, because first, I'd like to thank you for watching this entire video. This is one of the biggest Caddicarus episodes I think I've ever done, but, you know, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a big game, it kind of called for it, and I also would love to thank the sponsors for today's episode, Hims. Hims is an online wellness service specifically for men that exists to provide an easier and more discreet ways of allowing men to deal with a few more embarrassing issues that men all over the world do deal with on a daily basis. Everything from acne to hair loss, like with this here, the shampoo, and even stuff like
downstairs, if you know what I mean. And I'm sure you know what I mean, guys, when I say that, yeah, you can get some pretty embarrassing problems, but they are more normal than you think, and that's why I'm so happy that a service like this exists. So you just need to be able to take the first step, so why not give HIMS a go? They're a trusted destination for all kinds of medical guidance, from non-prescription to prescription-based supplies and stuff like that, and you also can get recommendations from trusted doctors on the service after you just fill in a quick medical evaluation form, after which they're all sent discreetly to your home address. So thank you again to HIMS for sponsoring today's video. Please go to the link in the description below, in near the top of the description, to get your complete hair kit, a month's trial of the complete hair kit for only $5. That is an insanely good deal, and if it works for you, then keep it going. That would be fantastic. I'd like to think that I've helped out a couple of people today, and special thanks as well to all the people on screen right now that help support me via Patreon, and also, of course, as always, the top tier supporters for this month: Omama 2, Basil, I Have a Portal Gun, Oblivion Rising, Exopaz, Matthew Hubble, Mills Kahai, Brandon, Binary Code, Kirsten B, QB, Cyberpunk Symphony, Nicole Ganara, Nathan Young, Victor Patrick Bauer, Robert Alamsha, The Game Shed, a YouTube channel, Daniel Leon, DC Dungeon Master, Braden Kenny, Jake Delahaye 2008, Mitchell Reed, and A.D. Thornton Smith. Thank you so much, every single one of those people.
He doesn't like your hat.
This hat is very, very fancy, I'll have you know, dog. Red Dead Redemption, as far as I'm concerned, made me forget the lines. And I say this... Oh, shut up! I mean, I wouldn't take what I say that... I mean, I wouldn't take what I say that seriously. I mean, I wouldn't take what I say as that... This is actually really hard. Damn it! As for the visuals... Come on, I can get like 2 spins and then I lose it. Some of the best quality horse snow
Bloody dog!
What was that?
Stan!
Calm down.
That is so stupid.